Hey folks, how are ya? Brian Carroll here, and welcome back to episode 5 of the Film in Vermont podcast, where we have conversations with Vermont-based creators. Today, I am especially excited to welcome the director and writer, and also actors from the Black Girls Kissing series, Kiersten White and Julia Anderson. We get to dive deep into episode 1 of the series, episode 2, which is currently in pre-production and going to film soon, and also the series as a whole, and really the importance of telling stories that are representative of people that look like you, or just a better diverse representation in media in general, which is something that for a long time had been missing. We talk about the writing process, about the scope of the project, and of course, how to get things made in the state of Vermont. Both of them had incredibly interesting and out-of-the-box kind of thinking about networking and collaborating and all sorts of different things. And again, like anytime I get to talk to the two of these wonderful creators, it's really, really a joy and a pleasure. So I hope you all enjoy, and here we go. Awesome. So, just to start, this is what I've been kind of asking everyone is, from your own perspective, what do you see your role within, people say they're directors, people say they're DPs, people say they're sound people say they're producers, but as it relates to Black Girls Kissing, what is your role in the project? And more specifically, what does that mean to you? Because I could ask 100 different directors what they think directing means, and they probably would say something a little bit different.
Well, I mean, for me, I'm the writer of the series. For me, that looks like imagining lots of scenarios in which two women could meet and fall in love, and then not only the scenario but the world that could fit into, and the timeline, and just I guess leaving up to my imagination and thinking about all the narratives that I saw growing up in like sci-fi, fantasy, dramas, romances, all that, where I wish that there had been Black representation and not just like, for example, like white representation or like cishet representation, but pulling from some of those narratives and the tropes that we do love, then also expanding past the tropes and just seeing what I can come up with. So that's what I see myself doing as a writer for the series. It's like pushing those boundaries and creating the content that I always wished I could have seen growing up in Vermont too, right? And then I also am an associate producer, which looks a lot like community outreach and collaborating with people within the community that are willing to share their locations or their clothes or their props or their services, right? And seeing who wants to be a part of the project just for the joy of being a part of Vermont filmmaking. So I would say that those are my two major roles.
Kiersten, what about you?
Yeah, I'm a producer and director, and I've been doing those for the past decade. I got my degree in gender, sexuality, and women's studies, and with a concentration in film from Spelman College. And then I went on to Savannah, Georgia. I was like in a Georgia era. So then I went from Atlanta to Savannah, and I got my master's in film. And I was just drawn to directing and producing because that's just what I was good at. Directing more so because that was my creative vision. And I always wanted to be, and I always knew I was an artist, but I didn't know which medium I was more drawn to because I thought all artistic mediums were beautiful. So I thought, film would probably make the most sense because I can represent all artistic mediums in film, right? I can show dancing and I can have a poetry film and there can be singing, there's not anything that film can't capture. So that was the reason why I chose directing, because I already had a vision that was very strong. And I was able to write really well. I always liked writing, and so my directorial statements were always super good, and that's helped me with grant writing as well. And then the producing part, that just in order for me to have my vision actually come alive and be on screen, I had to do it myself. So that's why the producing part came. So yes.
Now, how about, I guess each of you separately, I'd be curious to hear, and I wish I could ask you without the other one listening, about what the elevator pitch of Black Girls Kissing is as an episodic series.
I say it's when I'm doing an elevator pitch, like, oh, what's Black Girls Kissing? And handing up my business card. People often ask me, like, what am I working on right now? And I say I'm a filmmaker. And I say it's an anthology series that follows two Black women who fall in love in different times and realities.
Yeah. So the great thing is that we actually came up with our original pitch together for Jam Pitch Fest. So I would say that mine sounds very similar. Yeah, and even like the comp of like just Meet Cutes as a concept meets Black Mirror. So yeah, you're getting portaled from story to story, and none of them are connected outside of the fact that it's those two souls re-meeting in different lives and different realities and universes. So I'd say our pitches actually probably are very similar, because we got to pitch it at Jam, and that's what launched the series, is winning Pitch Fest and then having our first episode premiere at White River Indie Film Fest.
And we're forever writing grants and always looking at the pitch deck, so it's always right there.
Right. I mean, already you've kind of alluded to this idea where you're both playing multiple roles, and in the case of episode 1 of the series, you both act in it as well. So I think that kind of plays into this idea of like really keeping production streamlined and keeping on a very tight budget, particularly with like independent projects like this, where Kiersten, as you mentioned, you're constantly writing grants and trying to figure out how you're going to get the next one off the ground and all of that. So, I think there's some obvious answers to this, but in terms of episode 1, aside from playing multiple roles, were there other things that some kind of helpful tips for people that are trying to be really tight on their budget and, still get something made?
If I may, Julia, that one was a difficult one because we shot that in a day. We only allotted a day for it. And it went until 3:00 in the morning. And that was a lot and not what we imagined. I always also was working with like a new person in a very critical role, a couple new people in a very critical role. And that was good, but they were like also very novice. And like, I think I needed more people who were a little bit more experienced. So I think I probably wouldn't do that again. It was really difficult. Doing that particular shoot, and but we did it, and it turned out we like it. I think it's experimental and it's fun. I'm really excited for the second episode and the other episodes because they follow a more narrative format, which is what I'm used to and what I appreciate the most. But post was really fun for episode 1. Post was great, playing around with the material that we had because they caught so much footage. Honestly, it didn't have to go to those 3:00 in the morning. We had like 10 hours of footage. It was wild. So, but it was a crazy shoot. And Julia can tell you, I don't even remember saying this. I don't know where I was, probably off somewhere, like, I don't know, trying to get everything together. But they saw the bear on the shoot.
Yeah, right when, so we had a team come from New York. And I feel like I'm always struggling to see wildlife just in general as a Vermonter, but every time someone comes to visit, they're like, oh my God, I saw a moose right down the road on the way here. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I've never seen a moose in Vermont ever. And I've lived here for decades. So they pulled up and immediately saw a bear right out, probably like 100 yards away from the house where we were shooting. So that was just like a perfectly welcome to Vermont moment. And yeah, I mean, just like getting to see Stowe more and be in Stowe and be in that beautiful Airbnb. I think what did work really well for us in the first episode was leaning on that community support where we could. And I think that kind of showed us our potential for what we could do with community support. So we had less locations last time. And, you know, totally different script to work with, like Kiersten's talking about. And this one, it's more narrative, there's more locations. But I think what we learned from the first one is how willing people can be to like become a part of the film. So like with the first film, we had a really awesome collaboration with Putnam's. And so we had Red Wine, I would say, was one of the main characters of the film alongside of us. And we needed to get Wine, and we're like, well, how can we do that? That is a way that will collaborate with the community in a way that frankly is free. And we reached out to Putnam's, and they were like, absolutely. And they had just I've never seen a case of wines before, like a little carrier case. But they just had one out there waiting for us, all the same bottle, like, and so it was perfect for set, for props. And it was just such a moment of generosity that really showed us that, you know, people want to be a part of this process, and help us. So that was really neat.
How many takes of taking sips of wine did you have to go through in the end?
We mixed it with grape juice. It was really disgusting. It was so disgusting. When you mix, you know, you can't mix wine with grape juice. But we did it. It was fine. It was like the worst sangria. But we had to do a couple takes. I think we went through like 2 bottles. I was kind
opening, not always pouring, but opening too, right? I think we tried to get.
Yeah. I think we ran out of grape juice or something, so then we had to use the wine. I don't know what happened.
Well, so like working within the confines of like short form and shorts and stuff like that, but you're dovetailing this into like the broader picture of, I'm not sure if you can even call it a mini series, because it's going to be 9, 10, but potentially an infinite number of episodes when things are all said and done, right? But I think that, you know, that specifically allows you, the faculty, to learn and apply things from episode 1 to episode 2 to episode 3, et cetera, et cetera. So in terms of, you know, whether it's writing process or location seeking or just production in general, were there things from episode 1 that you're like, this is absolutely something we learned that we're going to apply to the next one that's coming downstream?
Sorry, there was something that you said earlier about, so episode 1, location scouting. What are we going to apply to the second one? I think we decided that so the community, and this is kind of Julia's, because, you know, Julia's from here and has lived here her entire life. So she was very helpful in terms of like community outreach. We knew which institutions in the community are dependable and who we can turn to again. And there's a lot of formidable institutions with very strong connections in the community that support Black girls kissing. Episode 1, so there's 10 short films. There's only 10. And we are just going to see how many we can produce. I don't think we promised anyone 10, but that's how many scripts there are. Mm-hmm. So like we were surprised that we were going to be able to produce episode 2, but that happened when we got $10,000 of grants from the state of Vermont. So it's all kind of like, okay, like what is feasible, you know? Yes. How feasible is it for us to, you know, and they all get a little bit more expensive in production. So that's how we did it. We were like, okay, if we can do episode 1 for $5,000, you know, can we do episode 2 for $20K? I think it might just kind of multiply by 4.
It does. I think it absolutely does. Which maybe is where Vermont comes in as a state.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to ask. Was that like an active decision from the get-go in terms of your writing process, Julia, or is that you know, you're like, we saw success with the first one, you know, the idea being that as we go on further and further, like, are you going to have a spaceship in episode 7 or something like that, or build a house?
We absolutely do have spaceships in one of the episodes, so great job guessing. Yeah, I think it just kind of happened naturally. The very first episode is present day Vermont. The only thing really mysterious about it, I mean, is there's a bit of surrealism, and it's experimental, like we said, but it's very much like present day, all takes place within a Vermont apartment, right? Very, very condensed. And then I think just as I sat with the project and started to think, I think it naturally got bigger, because every time you go on to write a next episode, it's like, okay, well, what's next? And so, the next one the episode 2 takes place in Vermont, right? But then we have slightly bigger scale, like, again, more robust narrative, also like slightly supernatural. And then it keeps getting bigger. The first 3 are very, very Vermont, and then we start to leave the obvious Vermont. That doesn't mean that they can't be made by Vermonters in Vermont, but it means that the scope of the world, like we said, it's reality jumping, it's genre bending. So we start to leave the IP of present day Vermont, or even historic Vermont, and we get to see more worlds and more realities. So that is really exciting. And I think that just came from every time sitting down and being, okay, well, what's next? It just naturally grows. And you want to push the boundaries of what you can do. And as a writer, I have the privilege of pushing boundaries without thinking of budget. And then obviously when we get to the episode that we're on and we're like, okay, how are we going to do this? That's when we start, checking and balancing, right? But, we've always, and Kiersten's always encouraged me to just write it how I see it first. And how, if we could have all the money in the world, or if we could have all the resources, right, how would it look? Because that's how you get the story, the heart of it. And then you can always reshape it to become more feasible once you know what its truth is and what its story is, and what you're trying to tell or say, or where you want to be. So that always happens first, and then budget happens second. And also, I think we did hope and believe that the more that people see these episodes, the more that I think they'll realize they have a genre or a series that they kind of have always wanted and maybe didn't even know they wanted. Because I mean, as a Black queer person, I've struggled to find endless content throughout genres that represents queer Black people. So I think the more that wind picks up that this is something that exists, the more people will be like, oh my God, finally, and our following will expand. But I was thinking about the location scouting too, and what we learned from episode 1, and how I kind of alluded to previously, that we learned that people are willing to help and reach out. I've been having the greatest time doing location scouting and prop scouting for this second film, because it's really me driving up to places, calling people and being like, hey, can we shoot here? Or I just met an amazing guy who has a car that we can use for the episode. And it was literally outside of my gym. And I had been looking, I'd spent so long looking. And then of course, the second I stopped looking, just go for a workout right there in the parking lot, I was like, that's the car. And then the excitement that he felt for getting to be a part of this project, that's such a big deal. And is so proud of his car, and showing me the trophies that he's won from shows, and he's traveled, to Maine and stuff. And there's so much pride there. So that for that to be memorialized for him in a film, to be able to say my car's in that film is such a big deal for a Vermonter, a longtime Vermonter. And so that was just really cool to see how special that was for Vermonters, to get to be a part of that, right? And we always think about people that get to be a part of films as people who live in LA or stuff like that. That you're going to be able to pop up as an extra in Criminal Minds or something. But to be able to create that kind of culture here in Vermont, where people get an opportunity they never thought that they would get to have, or the thing that, is the most important to them, whether it's their store or their vehicle, right? Or their, clothing collection, gets to be featured and gets to be seen in that way is just, it's so exciting. To get, and then the things that people will say, the stories they'll tell you. I was at Gilliam's general store yesterday in Woodstock. And the second that I said I was looking around for films, all of a sudden they're like, well, there's still a working rope elevator over there in that corner. And then right here above you is like a hatchet. So when they didn't want to use the elevator, they could drop stuff down. And all of a sudden, I'm getting like the behind the scenes of old Vermont. And so like, the history that I've gotten to just like receive and learn about our state, I think is something in itself that deserves to be captured, right? It's just been such a fun experience, and people are so willing to share their knowledge, the history, everything. It's just really cool.
I want to maybe get back a bit too, also to, you've already hinted at it and spoken a little bit about it, but like the importance of telling stories that are representative of people that look like you, particularly in a place like Vermont, which admittedly is not the diversity capital of the world. And if there's been any challenges with doing so, I know that, you want to be also hiring a representative crew and things like that as well. So has that been a challenge? And also maybe share some triumphs that you've seen as well in terms of like, I know the relationship with Jam being a very accepting and safe space. That's been a really good relationship for you all too.
Yeah, Jam's been awesome. Shout out to Samantha Davidson Green and Jordan Fitch and Cedar O'Dowd and Chico. They've been great. I think I wanted to say for episode 1, I think it's great because we can show, Julia and I and our crew, we can show that we have the technical skill to pull off a film, right? I think the cinematography was beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the sound design was amazing. That was Daniel Feliciti. I think the wardrobe design, Natalie Barrio-Gill from New York City, was fabulous. I think it looks really good. And it's on YouTube now and it has over 27,000 views. That's because people are looking up Black girls kissing, like the actual act. But, it's helping us get the views. We did look at the demographics. A lot are coming from South Asia, Europe, and Papua New Guinea. New Zealand folks are looking up that, and we love that for them, but they're ending up on our page, on our video, on our film, and that's great. So I think we pulled it off, and I think that's good because it gives us that platform we're looking for to continue to receive money and support from the community, as well as other artists who want to be a part of something that looks really nice and also involves a lot of skill and talent, and who happen to be Black and queer. Mm-hmm. So that was our goal, was to get our foot in the door with episode 1, and I think we did that well. People definitely will see a beautiful product. Now we hope to get deeper in the story, in the narratives of actual Black lesbian women who were living and loving in a time that was very not representational of their actual lives. And so in episode 2, we have Zora and Nia, who are in their 70s. They're elderly, and it's the 1970s. That just happened to be a coincidence, because what a cool era to represent in Vermont. And we've always been here. I mean, I'm from Virginia, but I come from rural areas in Virginia, and people don't, a lot of times, even in the South, where Black people make up the largest, minority group, people don't think of Blackness as being rural. They think of it urban. They're always like, oh, everything urban is Black. When they say Black, they're urban. But I grew up with rural family members who were sharecroppers, and I can only imagine that there are rural Vermont lesbians loving each other, and they definitely were Black. I mean, they had to be. Not every lesbian couple in Vermont's going to be white. And I just think we don't think of that because it's not a part of the larger narrative and what America oftentimes projects as what is, true and accurate and representational. So we are doing the work of disrupting that idea that being queer belongs to a certain homogenous group.
I love that. And you're 100% right. In my day job, I work in medical research, and there's huge initiatives to try to pinpoint and get BIPOC population out because they're so underrepresented in clinical research. And that's, decades upon hundreds of years of systemic oppression. That's probably for another podcast. But I think that it's important that you guys are telling these stories and making the efforts to do it in a place that, like I said, isn't the diversity capital of the world, but still there are those stories here, and it's important that people are seen, I think.
Yeah. Like it's about capturing, as much of the diaspora as possible, but especially, parts of the diaspora that are often overlooked, including what we know, right? Which is just like the of love in a rural place, and how that can be, obviously, growing up rural has its own risks logistically, but also there's so much potential. There's safe havens as well, especially when you think like Vermont in the north, and like, everywhere you go, there is racism, but then also where you go, sometimes you have the opportunity to create a world for yourself, a bubble for yourself. Vermont is a place that's just, full of bubbles, small towns that, that's just the only place that exists. And I kind of took that idea from growing up in Vermont, and in this second episode have done my best to create this bubble for Zora and Nia, where they could not only exist, but thrive in that era, which I think was really important for us, to see the life that they could build for themselves. We see in media a lot of Black struggle. We don't always see Black people thriving. And so that is something that we were really determined to make sure that that was a theme that reoccurred in our series. That doesn't mean that we don't have conflict and strife now. Like, we do, but we wanted it to have a healthy balance of thriving and hope. And so, like, showing the diaspora of Blackness, but also showing the diaspora of possibility. That's what we have the opportunity to do with an anthology series. So we're never stuck, like Kiersten was saying, in anything like monolithic. Like, we're not stuck in one track. We have the ability to explore so many possibilities. And even imagine, right, a reality in which, Black people get to have the nicest things versus like sometimes our reality in America where that's not the case. And edging in and out of like reality, surrealism, Afrofuturism, those are all places we're trying to go with the series.
I'm just now thinking about, you mentioned the 1970s and then the futuristic thing, and going back to the fun that you had with the costuming. Those I imagine are going to be very, very fun episodes to come up with costumes for.
Yeah, hiring is, I think you mentioned hiring. Hiring has been it's been very easy. Everyone, that's maybe because I did source from my previous film communities in New York City and in DC. I'm from around DC. And the camera crew came from New York City last time, as well as the wardrobe designer. Our camera crew is coming from Vermont, from DC this time, but we have our wardrobe designer and everyone who's working in the artist department and our sound department and electrical department in Vermont, which we appreciate. I think we wanted to make it more Vermont centric, and hire people who are actually living and working here and who are artists. Sometimes we do have to outsource Black queer people from different states because, you know, as we keep saying, Vermont, you know, it doesn't have a great population of us. But it's working. It's working. And people are really motivated to join us, even if that takes an 8-hour, you know, ride. Yeah, hiring has been really lovely and community has come together. I think it's important to say Nia and Zora in this particular episode are transplants as well. They moved to Vermont to retire. And a lot of people do that. That's something that we know happens. They have traveled the world and they settled in Vermont, which I think is a great testament to the serenity of the Vermont community as well as its landscape. So I think that's sweet.
We'll get to show a little bit too, which will be nice this episode. To see more of Vermont, you know, leaving the apartment, the little cocoon of episode 1 and really getting to see Vermont in episode 2 will be great.
We hope more Black queer people decide to come to Vermont. It's been a great experience for me moving here. I was kind of thrown here and then someone offered me a job and I was like, it's summer, it's beautiful. Why would I go back to New York City where it's hot? And then it was winter and I was like, oh, I see. I understand now. But now I've been here for 3 years and it's been fabulous. And I can be more intentional about the art that I'm working on. And it's a slower pace. And I feel that community is strong. New York City, obviously, you have many different communities, but here you're not so distracted by the options and you kind of stick. And it helps you to also, it's helped me become more like mature, even emotionally, because I think and as an artist as well, and in partnerships, artistic partnerships, and business partnerships, because I think in New York, it's so easy to find people who are wanting to work and probably not work for a lot. And here, because we don't have those options, we have to stick with certain folks and work through problems and work through issues and mitigate any issues and just like stick together. And it has helped me so much as a communicator. It's helped me so much as an artistic partner. It's helped me so much in terms of like just keeping relationships with folk and not having like the luxury of so many different people who are wanting to be in the industry. I also think it's easier to get your foot in the industry here because people are always needing help and resources. And that's one thing that we have a surplus of here is the willingness and the generosity that comes with help, assistance, and resource giving.
So that's what I was going to kind of ask too is, you know, it sounds like in general, which is something I hear over and over again, that, you know, one of the greatest things about the industry here, or, you know, if we can even really call it that, but the film and creative landscape here is that sense of community and people wanting to help each other and wanting to see each other thrive. In terms of, you know, the biggest challenges or what you would like to see a year down the line or 5 years down the line, what do you think those biggest challenges and hurdles are? And, you know, kind of how can we overcome them, do you think?
I mean, I think that what you and Vermont Production Collective are doing with the database is an amazing thing because, you know, a lot of us are still in the phase of, which I think is a lovely phase. I don't know if I'd ever want to get rid of it entirely, but yeah, that kind of door to door, like, hey, would you be down, you know, to do this film with me? And I think as we continue to do that work, I think it's so important to like capture it and create like a resource that everyone that wants to make films in Vermont can use, because at the end of the day, because things are so rural, so spread out, and if they're not in the vicinity of, you know, a few neighborhoods away or a few towns away, we might miss out on Black queer talent that we just don't have access to yet. And some of that is time and network building, which we're all doing, but that just having a database accelerates it. So I think that is such a unique project that you guys are doing and really cool for people who are in the industry in Vermont and then people who are outside of Vermont that want to bring industry to Vermont. One of the things that always drives me crazy is when, you see like a movie, Hallmark movie or whatever, and it says that it takes place in Vermont, and you're looking at everything, it's clearly just, a studio set in like Atlanta or something. And for me, even when I'm just like driving around, I'm dropping pins of like, wow, this road, this mountain view is immaculate. Someone's going to use this someday. It's going to be me, or it's going to be someone, right? And, we just have this abundance of beauty in Vermont. And so it's just, we got to use it. So yeah, the more that we can connect people who are ready to use it, the more we can have the resources we need to do these projects. I think it just grows and grows. Vermont is an industry that can grow in so many ways, or in Vermont filmmaking especially. And I think that, I guess what you want to see more of too, like so much of our support has been from community grants, right? And that's been crucial to us, especially at a time in our country where national grants, or larger grants, specifically with some special buzzwords like women and queer and Black and all of those, are just getting chopped. We're leaning on community grants more than ever. And there's a similar issue with national competitions, which is that, one, there's thousands and thousands of submissions to national competitions for production money. And then on top of that, so for example, we just told you kind of about what our second episode is, which is like this beautiful, if I may say so myself, beautiful, beautiful story about timeless love, about older Black women in Vermont. Is the script gorgeous? Yes. Is someone in a national competition judge going to pick that over like a 5-minute Mission Impossible? Who knows? Because we're also trying to build the actual, like, we've always struggled to get Black narratives into Hollywood, into the industry. Like, that's been its own process. Then adding the aspect of queerness and trying to get that to break into the industry is a whole other thing. Then to add the diaspora of like different ages, all of these things, every single intersectionality you add is a new front you have to break through. And sometimes the only way to break through that front is to, like what we're doing, make it yourself. But in order to make it yourself, right, you need the funds. And so we're creative, we're, doing what we need to do in order to gain those funds. But I think moving forward, Vermont is a place that really could intentionally invest in showing and telling untold narratives and telling them in a way that also shows Vermont and all of its beauty, like we've been talking about this whole time, right? And when we're collaborating with local people right now, it's kind of like, hey, we really need a place to film. And also, if we can film in your place, so many people get to see the beauty of your location, your shore, your store, your clothes, your car. And it's that mutual benefit of, I see you, you see me, we're all getting seen together. We're all, being represented together. I think that's so important.
We're trying to work in a lot of product placement with local companies and businesses in Vermont, because we do so many different premieres here in Vermont. I mean, we're going to have one at Briggs Opera House. There's so many opera houses, but then also I show them to my community, my artistic community. I did a premiere at the Putney School just a week ago that, got a particular sort of reaction that I wasn't expecting and hadn't experienced before. We have connections up in New Thetford, Burlington, obviously, the Green Mountain International Film Festival, one of my films premiered there. So we have so many local Vermont premieres and showings of our film that we hope that the businesses who are represented in episode 2 will get some sort of they'll get the product placement that they're looking for and get some sort of incentive, buying incentive from our audience.
Mm-hmm. That's an untapped resource that I think is like something you don't, unless it's like, a Marvel movie and Pepsi or Buick or something is in your face, you don't think of it as much as an independent film. But I think that's something that's worthwhile, and it's a way to get some of that additional potential funding and things like that. So thinking outside the box is is great. How about if folks want to support episode 2 or future episodes, how can they do so? Is there a way to get in touch with you all? Are you donations on the website or whatever? Like how can people get involved in what you're doing?
Our website is very clear. It's the most direct website. I mean, you can find out how we conceptualize the idea of Black girls kissing. We take you through that process. All of our episode names are on my timeline, which year they take place in, who we are, our crowdfunder, and our investors. And then at the end, it's like, reach out if you have any more questions after all of that. But it's fun. It's a good website. And we're able to scroll. It's like a scrolling website, which I think is a great way to start maybe doing websites instead of the horizontal platform. I think the vertical platform is kind of the way to go. And that was our ingenious social media website designer. Can you say her name again?
Ciavada,
Ciavada, who's also a Black queer person. So our crowdfunder on our website, blackgirlskissing.com.
Awesome. Is there any closing thoughts you want to leave us with about the series or being an independent creative in the state or anything else?
Oh, well, I just remembered we should also plug our Instagram. Please follow us on Instagram for all the behind the scenes sneak peeks, all of that. Also the links to everything, including our webpage, crowdfunder, some of our interviews, and our first episode are all on our Instagram too. So that is also Black Girls Kissing Vermont. And you should totally follow. So I just wanted to put that out there too for people who are IG people. I'm an IG person, so. But yeah, moving forward, what do we, Kiersten, you want to tap back in?
I'm thinking, what would I say? What are my last thoughts? Last thoughts, Vermont and film. Black girls kissing.
I get that. It's just been so fun. Making films in Vermont is an amazing experience, and I think that everyone that has, I mean, we've had so much fun as our like core Vermont team, getting to work together, getting to work with friends, right, and like having a community. And I think people that have like come in from outside of Vermont have the luxury of like, we've gotten to film here during some of the most like beautiful times of the year, and like it's just, for me, I feel like it's such a privilege right now to be doing this like production work in the summer. And like I said, I feel like my community is growing and my sense of what is around us is growing. I know about cars now. So I think filmmaking in Vermont is so enriching for so many different people and has the potential to be enriching for so many more people. I think Junction Arts and Media has done an amazing job of delving into that. Now they're offering filmmaking courses. I think like film camps are like film clubs for kids, and like also building the industry within White River Junction within the Upper Valley, which I think is amazing because when you grow up rural, right, you don't always think like, hey, I'm going to be a filmmaker. And now that we, have social media, now that we have such a great small town arts district, and we're not the only town that has that now. Arts has always been incredibly valuable in Vermont, I think, at least while I've lived here. And I think, yeah, filmmaking has a home here. It absolutely should. I think that it can only get bigger, and it should get bigger. And like, we're just trying to figure out all the different types of ways that we can utilize what we've been given by being here, and hope that when people see the show or see the films, that they're really inspired and they see, we get to capture that, right? Capture that. And like, I think I said before, like, memorialize it. And it's a time capsule in some ways of what filmmaking in Vermont has a potential to be right now, and where it can go in the future. So yeah.
Junction Arts and Media, we were one of the first, I think maybe the first, if I may say so, organization to, we don't have 501c3 status, am I saying that correctly? 501c3? Yeah, status. We're not a nonprofit organization. So we needed to partner for a lot of our grants. We had to partner with a fiscal sponsor or fiscal agent, and Junction Arts and Media in White River Junction, Vermont acted as one for us. And they take a very small percentage, but not as much as most fiscal sponsors take. So they're really doing us a great favor. And now I've heard recently from Samantha that they've started to take on more fiscal sponsees. So I'd like to think that that's something that we pioneered, and now they're streamlining the process more. So we were like their first testers, and I guess it worked well enough for us, Black Girls Kissing, that now they're taking on more potential sponsees, which is amazing. Also, it's not, I mean, this podcast is great and this idea is amazing, but it's also like, so it feels very obvious to me. The filmmaking in Vermont has been the easiest filmmaking experiences I've had. You know, I've started off in Georgia, did things throughout DC, and then a lot of time in New York. And Vermont has the most resources for artists. They also support their artists. And also living here is a breeze. I haven't lived and created art somewhere that's as easy as my Vermont living and artistic experience has been. So love that we're doing this and we're talking about it. It also feels like it's such an easy plug, right? Maybe people don't know that Vermont's great, but maybe they just haven't been here. It also really helps that we don't have a lot of, as artists, we don't have constant advertisements in our face. We do not have billboards. We are able to, my commute to work, my commute to meet Julia, or my commute to our fiscal sponsor, JAM and White River Junction, is a very cathartic one, because I take a beautiful route. I follow the Connecticut River up. There are no advertisements bombarding me, interrupting my thought process as I figure out what I'm going to say and who I'm going to meet with. It's just serene here. And also, in terms of housing, most people just let you use their house on Airbnb or Vrbo. That doesn't happen anywhere else. In New York and DC and in Georgia and Atlanta, Savannah, you have to go through a whole nother website or a location scouting place, and they jack up the prices so high for you to have an interior shooting experience. You can book through Airbnb. I booked both of the houses that we're shooting at through Airbnb. They keep the price the same, and they're just happy. They're just like, give me a shout out in your credits, you know?
Okay.
And you know, I give them the credit or the role as location manager. I mean, it's a very easy process. So Vermont, easy plug. Artist, as for my artistic journey, Vermont has been a very easy breezy and beautiful place. And I hope more artists, specifically more Black queer artists who just would like to get out of the hustle and bustle of wherever they're from, or kind of experience a new setting in New England. I hope that they would come here and feel safe and build even more community with us, because we're here. We've always been here, at least since the 70s, at least since Zora and Nia have been in the 70s. So, you know, also it's the first place to emancipate slavery. Did we know that? Or it's the first place to eradicate slavery in the United States of America. So just as someone who has a history or has a degree in Africana studies, it feels like this would be the most comfortable place to live as a Black queer person. And I haven't had any issues, knock on wood, But I'm not saying racism doesn't exist here. I am saying, though, it has been a very respectful, dignified place to end up as an artist and a Black queer person.
You made me think, Kiersten, as you were talking, about how it's so obvious and about like how lovely it is. This thing's as small as the commute, right? How nice that's been. And I think that we're just advertising for more filmmakers and more queer Black people to come to Vermont. This is now an ad. Come to Vermont. It rocks. Come work with us. Come make films with us. It'll be a party. But I was thinking, because I traveled to Franconia with my mom like a year or two ago, and we went to the Frost place, which is one of Robert Frost's old farmhouses, and it's up on this mountain. So we went and we traveled to his place. It's very open. It's a museum, a public museum, probably way more open than many other museums that, I don't know, people that are not from Vermont, like, you can just walk onto the porch. Just walked onto the porch, and I was just sitting there and looking out at the view that he had, and I was like, no wonder he was a good writer. I mean, you don't even have to try here. The amount of inspiration from just being immersed in this climate is insane. And I feel like as a writer here, I'm always inspired. Like the beauty is everywhere. It's breathtaking. Like to be able to sit by the water and just let my mind wander, I realize is a privilege. And so, yeah, I guess, I'll speak very highly of the filmmaking process here as well. I don't have the more nationwide experience that I know Kiersten has, but just as a writer, writers want to hide away here, right? There's a lot of artists that are deeply entrenched in the industry and come to Vermont to get away from it, right? And we know that. And so I think that, yeah, it's so easy. It's so calm and soothing. And, you can have industry and peace at the same time, I think. And it's kind of maybe a proof of concept of that, right? You don't have to sell your soul to like such a capitalistic view of how the industry can look, when there's so many people that just want to be a part of art, right? And so, yeah, finding that balance between both worlds, I kind of think is what we're doing here, which is really beautiful.
And we're close to Quebec, to Canada.
Very true. Well, there you have it. You whether you like it or not, I think you both are the new spokespeople for filmmaking in Vermont after that.
Yay!
We love to pitch. We love to pitch.
Well, it's always such a pleasure talking to both of you, and I've really, like we had talked about, really enjoyed episode 1. I'm super excited for episode 2 to take shape, and there's 8 more after that, and so I'm excited to see them as well. And yeah, just appreciate you both and appreciate your art and that you're creating it here in this state.
We appreciate you too.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
One of the things I enjoyed most about my conversation with Kiersten and Julia is their aspirational quality about this series, their ability to really think big picture, but then scale things back to work within the confines that they found themselves in. Episode 1 was X amount of dollars. We would like to spend this amount on episode 2, but if this happens, then we can readjust and go in this route. It's that way that things actually can get accomplished. Things can get done. And that outside the box thinking is really where all those things take shape. Networking with a local wine company when wine's going to play a very large role in the episode or in the project. Getting in touch with a local antique car aficionado group to get the decade-appropriate car for this scene that you're shooting. Or establishing long-lasting relationships with organizations such as JAM that will lend that support over and over again. Relationships, community building. That's what we have here. And that's what I hear over and over again. And it's really so wonderful to see yet another team of creatives adopting that mentality and really putting it to good use. I thank Julia and Kiersten, and thank you all again for tuning in, for supporting this effort, to being interested in what people are doing here and how people are creating really wonderful work in the state of Vermont. If you'd like to leave us a 5-star review, that would be wonderful. If you'd like to tell a friend or share a link, that would also be wonderful. we'll keep doing this. Keep telling stories and helping to try to bolster up the community that we love here in the state of Vermont and in film. And we're just happy that you're all along for the ride. Till the next time, take care.